Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. And for my first time viewers, welcome. My name is Z, and today I'm going to be going over which version of Thor is the strongest version of Thor. So there's going to be four different Thors I'm going to be comparing. It's going to be Cosmic Thor, Rune King Thor from Gods and Men, and Future King Thor. So I've chosen these four Thors because I have a lot of knowledge about the character, and any story where Thor has gained some kind of like immense power, he's gained the Odin Force or what have you, I've read every one of those. I own every one of those, actually. If you look right there, those are the issues for the Gods of Men Thor that I'm going to be talking about as well. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is be showing some scans, just highlighting certain feats, things that I consider that are pretty impressive and can help with the decision of which Thor is the strongest. So the first one I'm going to be going through is the Gods and Men King Thor, and then I'll transition into, let's say, Rune King Thor. So if you're interested to find out which Thor is the strongest, this is the best place to do it, because I'm going to be actually showing some scans that's going to help us with that decision in the end. So stick around. So I'm going to be using my phone to help me with this because I have the scans uploaded here. So I'll be going over what we're seeing, give you a little bit of context to it, and I'll be displaying it like right over here. If there's any of these stories that you would like in-depth analysis on, or like reviews, just leave that in the comment, and if there's enough of it, then I'll actually go through these more in-depth. But for now, it's just a few scans with some feats that we're going to be going over. So the first one is there was a nuclear bomb that was launched at Thor and New Asgard, which is hovering above a city. Okay, I think it's either Manhattan or it's Oklahoma, one of the two. And Thor uses the Odin Force to contain this blast in that sphere that you see, and that's pretty impressive. But he's also saying that he can't do it forever, so there is a limitation to it. But he is stopping that entire nuclear blast from actually causing any type of devastating effect. So on the next scan here, Thor uses the power of Mjolnir to actually just whisk away that blast and send it to a place where it can't cause any harm. So I think both of those are pretty impressive. It shows his ability to, for one, control kind of physics in a way, because that's nuclear energy. So for him to be able to suppress it in that way, he is affecting some form of physics. And for him to be able to whisk it away to whatever, that's obviously a form of manipulating space. Potentially time, but we'll say space for now. But yeah, so those two little actions right there, I think really kind of shows what this Thor is capable of. Just think if any being he was going against, if he wanted to kind of suppress them and just send them away, he could do so, and it's not an issue for him. So on the next scan here, what you're going to see is Wolverine, Doctor Strange, and a few other heroes. They actually invade Thor's home and they attack him. So right at the top there, Thor's with Amora, the Enchantress, and his son Magni, who's just a baby. And they bust in on him, and Thor's telling him, like, yo, not here. Like, chill. And Wolverine's like, I don't care about none of that. So he slices Thor's arm. And then, so obviously Thor's mad. Like, yo, you attacked me at my home? Like, you're finna die. Like, seriously, you're finna die. And as you see, he just melts Wolverine. And this is using the Odin Force. So he does this eye beam. Wolverine gets melted. And you know how, like, adamantium is durable, practically indestructible. Wolverine does not survive this. He is dead. So that right there kind of lets you know how powerful this eye beam is it melted away everything that Wolverine had to offer. So Thor's telling him you're nothing. None of you are anything compared to the Odin Force. And you see Strange in the back, with his little hand signs. And what happens is on the next scan, he removes the Odin Force from Thor. So now Thor doesn't have the Odin Force, and the Hulk and the Thing, they come in and they're like, "Yo, it's time to beat on you. Dog. We about to give it to you. However, we got to give it to you." So they fly out the room that they're in, land. So the next scan, Thor tells them, "You've used your sorcery. You fought me for hours, and you still could not vanquish the God of Thunder." This dude is nuts. So that the amulet on his neck is what's taken away the Odin Force, pretty much. And so this feat of him killing the Hawk, killing the Thing, he also killed Doctor Strange. That's off screen, but he's doing that with his own might. There's no Odin Force involved in it, just him, and he doesn't wield Mjolnir anymore. So this is just Thor doing this. So that's nuts. And then so the next thing we got to talk about is basically the main villain of this story. His name is Desak. I believe it's Desak the Destroyer. But this scan here is just Amora kind of talking about Desak, and she gives a brief description here, but this is relevant to understand just how powerful and absurd this Thor is. She says, "Desak was created for the sole purpose of making the gods extinct. He is impervious to our power." Okay? Any type of god power, it does not affect Desak at all, including the Odin Force. So keep that in mind as we move on to the next scans. So this one here, Thor tells him, "The power of Odin is mine, including the power to simply remove you from existence." That is crazy, dude. That is absolutely nuts. So with the Odin Force, if this would work on Desak, if he wasn't immune to his power, he could literally just be like, "You don't exist," and you wouldn't exist. So I wanted to include that because that is absolutely nuts. He actually tries it on him, and Desak's like, "Yeah, you can try, but it's not going to work." And it doesn't work. So they end up fighting, and it's this big fight. Desak's destroying everybody. But yeah, Thor can just, I guess, will you from existence, and you have no choice but to go. So, and then this is one of the last scans for this Thor, just kind of going over feats. And Thor, so at this point, Desak has actually merged with portions of the Destroyer armor. So not only is he Desak as he was, he also has the Destroyer armor as well. So even stronger. And Thor, for the first time in a long time, has picked up Mjolnir, chucked it at him. It's glowing blue, so I would assume he may be imbued with a little bit of the Odin Force. And on this next scan, boom, he chucks it right at his head, and through his head it goes, and he just kills him. A guy that's immune, impervious to any god power. I mean, Thor really just didn't care. And he ends up saying, the righteous power of Odin in the face of evil, it knows no bounds. So he's chucking it up to the Odin Force, which it is, but it's just it knows no bounds. You may be impervious, but who cares? Odin's power doesn't care, and Thor's wielding it. So so that just shows how ridiculously powerful this Thor is. Just his will, if he wants it, you're kind of just gone. He can either just remove you from existence, he can teleport you wherever he wants to. You can be impervious to his power, and he still will kill you. So this Thor is very, very powerful. There's probably a few more feats that I could have found, but I just wanted to try to keep it as few as possible. Try not to make this video too long. So Moving on to the next Thor, we'll be looking at Rune King Thor. Alright, so Rune King Thor. Most of you probably have heard the name. You've heard how powerful he is. You may have heard that he is the most powerful Thor to exist. So we're going to go over some scans and see just how true that may or may not be. Alright, so the first scan I'm going to show, it's not a crazy feat, but it's something that's interesting and shows his combat prowess. And if you look, he's fighting Thor and Fenrir, so Loki's son. And he tackles Loki to the ground. If you look at when he backfists Fenrir, it's with his right hand. And then the next panel, that same right hand comes back to punch Loki in the mouth. Then in the next panel, that same arm hand goes backwards to elbow Fenrir in the face. He literally worked them over with that one hand. Jesus. Dude, look how nuts that is. Like, he really just worked them out. And it just goes on for a minute. He's pummeling them to death. So, like, in the next scan, I didn't include it, but when you actually see it, like, he's standing there, you know, all bulked up, hardcore looking, and his fists are just smoking. They're just smoking. And Thor and Fenrir has to run away. So I just wanted to include that because it's just amazing. So the next one, the guy you see Thor locked up with, his name is Durak, the Demolisher. This guy is able to contend with the Silver Surfer. Actually, the Silver Surfer could not defeat him. The Silver Surfer had to essentially whisk him away somewhere, like in the future, and leave him there. Right? So, reading the first panel, Thor says, like, even with Mjolnir beside me, I could barely stand against you before. So he's beaten Thor, he's beaten Silver Surfer. Then Thor just kind of goes on to say, like, how he's relied on Mjolnir too much. And, yeah, he ends up just creating this, reaching deep within himself and creating this giant lightning. It's lightning. I don't even know. It's like a blast or something. And he completely decimates Durak with just that one attack. So being that he couldn't beat before, and that the Silver Surfer couldn't beat, this Thor just does it. Just like that. And one thing I need to mention here also, the Fenrir Loki versus Thor panel, and this one versus Durak, Thor does not have the Odin Force. The Odin Force actually has left him. So there is no Odin Force there. The next thing that that we'll look at, this is where Thor really gets powerful. And I'm going to read it and I'm going to show you the scan here. But it says, the magic of the runes and wisdom from the well of Mimir give Thor the power to know the past, to control the present, and guide the future. Okay. Now Thor can see through the veil of time, past the knowing of the gods. So I'm going to be reading this just so you understand, like, what these runes do, how their power works, and what it kind of means for Thor. The next panel says, as Donald Blake Thor learned the science of man, he sees all things, animal and mineral. He sees beyond quantum structure, beyond cosmic architecture, and into the nothingness of Gungan Gap. Always such a weird thing to say. Gungan Gap. He sees the relationship between man and God, child and father, creator and destroyer. Only after destruction can there be resurrection. Now he knows what he must do. So it's just talking about how much Thor is able to see. And this is just letting you know that Thor is omniscient, which means he's actually all-knowing. He has past knowledge, knowledge of the present, and of the future as well. And on this one, the one I wanted to read from is the actual second half of the panel. And it says, the runes show him the future of all things, of every man and beast, every leaf on every tree. He sees every deed, seen and unseen, every battle lost and won. So that's just kind of support the fact that he is omniscient and he does know everything. So in the next scan, this is a very impressive feat. But I'll also talk about something else that make it maybe not as impressive. So what we have here is the Mangog, who is a very, very, very powerful guy. He's a threat to Odin. He's a menace. And then I think he describes his strength as having the strength of 1 billion of his people. So he is very, very strong. And Thor in the past has had just the worst trouble beating him. But I won't go too deep into that. So what we have here is he runs up on Thor. He's like, yo, you destroyed the rock, you know what I'm saying? Let's see if you can do that with me. Thor stops him with one hand. Okay. A being that Odin literally fears stops him with one hand. Boom. Right in his tracks. So if you look at the next panel, that lower one there, you see, if you can see the Mangog, he's striking with his left arm, and there's like a blue circle around it. That's actually the runes shielding Thor. And then in the next two panels over, you see him strike with his right arm, and there's that shield once again shielding Thor. And now this is what kind. So this is impressive right here. It's amazing, but what kind of makes it kind of tone down a little bit is what Thor says, and he says, "I see your magic fails you, Mangog. Such is the price to pay under Loki. His power has surely grown." So, in some way, it kind of seems like, okay, Loki might be weakening the Mangog, and he's not as powerful as he usually is. That's one way to look at it. The other way is, like, he's just, I don't know, I guess not at full power because he's working for Loki. I'm not too sure. I would try not to put too much weight onto it. Mangog's a force to be reckoned with every time he shows up. So I think this feat is still impressive, but I think we got to take into consideration that Mangog at this point might be nerfed. But the next scan shows something very crazy. And so the very top, it says, "Well, I know a spell to catch a witch and turn her into the wind. And I know a spell to bottle this being and empty this bottle as well." So this is kind of just like the gods and men Thor. He can just take you out of existence. That's what he's saying. He's saying, I can catch a witch and turn her into the wind. She'd be nothing. I can put you in a bottle and I can empty the bottle. And that's exactly what he does. So if you see, he still has the Mangog by the head. There's actually a rune on the back of his hand. And yeah, the Mangog turns into pretty much a spirit, and he's like, be at peace, and pretty much blows him away. That was it. Holy crap. Like, so, unfortunately, the gods and men Thor, he wasn't able to do his, like, whisking you from reality thing because the guy he tried it on was impervious. So we don't know how well it would work, you know, against powerful beings. We know how powerful Mangog is, and it worked on him. This actually worked, and he's not a pushover. So it goes to show, like, how powerful this Thor is. So that's really crazy feat there. The next scan, so this feat's not crazy, but it kind of shows something that I'm gonna highlight it once I go through this all. But these kind of like giant trolls, they try to jump on Thor, and he just makes this shield and propels them all back. Loki tells him, like, yo, you're gonna make this difficult, aren't you? He's like, I'm gonna make this impossible. So you have that. The next scan, right before this, these little Hellion looking creatures, they're all wielding hammers, by the way. So they chuck it at Thor. Thor is like riding in like this flying ship, and they throw it at him. Like, it looks pretty powerful. It is. The hammer is glowing yellow. It actually destroys the vessel that Thor's in. But then you see right here, Thor stops it, and they're like, maybe you shouldn't have done that. And then Thor tells him like, this is a fine hammer, but you can only know its true worth when you felt it for yourself. So then he just throws it right back at him, killed him. It's not that impressive, but what makes this impressive is like what we've seen thus far from him, and what we've seen thus far is this Thor has taken 0 damage. The entire time he has the runes. Mangog runs up on him. He's able to stop him with one hand. Every blow he threw at him was blocked by runes, by whatever magic that is. When the orcs, not orcs, the goddamn giants tried to jump on him, the shield just goes and propels them out. When they chuck a hammer at him, he just stops in midair. So I wanted to show these scans because it seems as though this Thor, he may be untouchable. It'd be a stretch to say that because we haven't seen him face other beings who may have been capable of touching him, but every conflict he's gotten in this comic, he doesn't get touched, so that's something to consider. So that's all for Rune King Thor. Like I said, I'm not going to go into the actual stories, what happens. If you want that, leave it in the comments. Tell people to leave it in the comments, and then I'll go over that stuff. But just now, it's just feeds, okay? So the next one I will go over is Future King Thor. This one's going to be good. I'm going to read it for you, then I'm going to give you context behind it. It says, the cyclone is the size of a supernova, sucking up chunks of dead worlds from parsecs away and turning them into lightning-charged comets. Holy crap. So Thor is basically wielding a cyclone. It's so powerful, it's the size of a supernova. I don't know what a parsec is, right? I'm sure we all heard that on Star Wars, parsec, 12 parsecs. I don't know what a parsec is. I don't know how far it is, but I'm assuming it's probably pretty far. And it's taking debris from this great distance, turning it into lightning-charged comets, and hurling them at his foe, which his foe is Wolverine, wielding the Phoenix Force. This scan actually introduced one of this King Thor's villains, and that is Dr. Doom. But not just any Dr. Doom. This Dr. Doom, it says, he is the Fist of Iron, the Starbrand Supreme, the Master of Mystic Vengeance. He is Doom. Right? So this is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm gonna go to the next scan because he goes over what that means. If you're a little lost, if you're confused, he tells you right here. He says the Starbrand, the Iron Fist, the Spirit of Vengeance, and the Sorcerer Supreme. Doom is all these things in addition to being Doom. Wow. So let me give you some context on that, right? So Doom himself is already a formidable opponent, able to pretty much take on the Avengers all by himself. That's how powerful just normal Doom is. The Starbrand is a power, without going into too much detail about it, if you have this power, you have unlimited energy, and your potential is only limited by your mind. That's it. So he has the Starbrand. The Iron Fist, I'm pretty sure he's talking about the power that Iron Fist has, being able to create those powerful blows and things like that. Pretty sure that's what he's talking about there. But that's probably like the least impressive thing out of the rest of it. The Spirit of Vengeance, which is what Ghost Rider is already just crazy, crazy powerful. Crazy powerful. I mean, Spirit of Vengeance, it's capable of fighting beings like Silver Surfer, Galactus. Like it is a very powerful being, and it can't die either. Yeah, for the most part, like they can't die. So very powerful there. And then the Sorcerer Supreme, that's Doctor Strange. We all know how crazy powerful Doctor Strange is and the things he can do with the mystic arts, like warping realities and different things like that. So Doom is all these things, okay? So just think about that and think that Thor is fighting this being. That is stupid. So they get to fighting. And I put these passages up because it talks about how long they've been fighting. So it says for many years. I'm starting at the top panel, just at the lower reading. It says for many years to come, there would be fiery earthquakes and volcanoes that spewed lightning and roars loud enough to crumble mountains. But life would endure. Generations would come and go, never knowing a world that wasn't roaring and cracking apart. So Thor and Doom went into the earth. They're fighting for a bit. Actually, hold up, I gotta pull back. Going too fast. Sorry. Wolverine ends up giving the Phoenix Force to Thor. So now Thor is Phoenix King Thor, and they end up going into the earth and fighting for generations. And this panel shows that Thor emerges victorious after all that. So that's just crazy that just the Phoenix Force in Thor's power, and I'm pretty sure he has the Odin Force, is enough to take on something like what Doom had. So he pops up, it is finished. Looking like a beast. So that's the first part of it. So he defeats Doom. Then in the next part, I included these because it's showing the caliber of beings that Thor is actually facing and just his power in comparison. So this one, just going over it pretty quickly, is Thor hurls Loki. Loki's wielding the Necro Sword now. He hurls him into the sun, and you see right here on the second panel, it's like one sun won't be enough. So, and then he's like, gods no. So what's happening is Loki is actually just like absorbing the power of the sun. Like it's not affecting him at all. So that's just one thing to look at when seeing the beings he's fighting, right? So moving on to the next one, we see the Earth being destroyed. This is by Gore. Gore has returned, and the part I want you to focus on is the last panel, and it says, "These are but the final twitches. Behold the dying of the light." And behold the dying of the light. So what Thor is doing right now is he's basically taking suns, spinning his hammer strong enough, hard enough, and he's going to basically throw them at Gore. There's 3 suns, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to just build something from their ashes. So he's literally powerful enough to just take suns and toss them. Absolutely nuts. And then, so Gore ends up becoming the entire universe, encasing it in darkness. And then Thor ends up gaining a new name. It says, all hail the king, all hail King Thor, the Endfather. So basically he decides that in order to defeat Gore, he has to destroy the entire universe. So that's exactly what he does. And the last scan that I've included was just the statement it makes. It says, and the worst part is how easy it feels. How much easier it is for him to destroy the entire universe than it ever was to save it. So that just kind of tells you, like, this Thor, he doesn't have the Phoenix Force right in this section. That's gone. But this Thor is just his destructive power is just massive. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's able to hurl suns. He's able to destroy the universe casually. Like, he's like, yo, this is easy work. He also had his intestines cut out by Loki, and it didn't stop him at all. He actually used his intestines to choke Loki, too. So he's just like practically unstoppable. And his Thor is ridiculous. So that is... So I was going to go over the Cosmic Thor. But really, Cosmic Thor has one feat, and that is he one-shots Galactus. He one-shots Galactus Creator. While these are impressive feats, it's hard to gauge how powerful he is in comparison to the other Thors who have a little more to go off of. But what we do know is that it's Thor, it's King Thor, wielding the power of Odin. It is, he has the power cosmic, which we've seen what it does to Silver Surfer, to anyone who wields the power cosmic, how much it elevates them. So really, I think we can look at the Cosmic Thor and just say, if you took Odin, if you took Odin, gave him the power cosmic, that's essentially what you get right there. I think Thor's probably a little bit more powerful, but that's essentially what it is. But yeah, now it's time to go on to the conclusion of which of these Thors is the most powerful Thor. Alright, so if you stuck around for this long, it is now time for the conclusion of which Thor is most powerful. So, with a drum roll, I choose future King Thor. This Thor, he has some of the most feats when we're talking about raw power. He just does absolutely crazy things. He's hurling suns at people. He's surviving all manner of damage. He's destroying universes, and they know it easily. And he survived everything. He's the last god in existence. So he survives everything. That dude's extremely powerful. Now, on the other hand, you do have the Rune King Thor, who could potentially be more powerful, but the only thing is we don't see it. And we'd have to make a lot of assumptions in order to come to that conclusion, and we're just not going to do that. We've seen that he does have some reality warping abilities, being able to remove people from existence. He was also able to remove Loki's head and still keep him alive. And he was omniscient, so he knew all things, and he also couldn't be touched either. So as far as we've seen, there was nobody who could lay a hand on him. So he's definitely powerful, but I think just as far as what we've seen, raw potential power is definitely has to go to future King Thor. The runner-up would be Rune King Thor. Would I do Rune King Thor over Cosmic? No, I'd probably put Cosmic. I'd probably put Cosmic as number 2, just because, like I said, I mean, we know how powerful Odin is. If you took Odin, gave him the power cosmic, it would propel him into just ridiculousness. He'd probably be able to destroy anyone he wants to. And I'm pretty sure that Thor probably could destroy anyone he wanted to at that point in time. So I would put him as number 2. And that's really just because the lack of feats. We only have the one feat, and we have to make a lot of assumptions just based off that one feat. So I think second place is good for that one. Number 3 would go to Rune King Thor. Like I said, it's just not enough to back up any more than what we've seen. And then the weakest Thor is going to be the King Thor from Gods and Men. Even though he's not weak at all, he's very, very powerful, very impressive. But just not on the level of the other 3 Thors that we have seen. So with that being said, if you've stuck around this entire time, I appreciate you. Leave a like on the video. Also, comment who you think is the most powerful Thor based off of those scans. And like I said, if you do want to see more in-depth analysis on each one of these stories, also just leave it down in the comment there as well. Subscribe, and thank you.